Hi, my name is Brian Saunders, and I'm with Marco Equipment Company. We're the Tymco street sweeper dealer for Southern California. Today, I'm going to go over some operator basics. We're going to go over some, first I'm going to teach how our airstream works, how our water system works in our airstream, just some basic skills, just some refresher skills for your operators, things that, you know, you tend to forget when you're doing 20, 30, 40 miles of sweeping every day and you just get into a routine, and sometimes it's just helpful to go back and remember how the system works. So right now I'm going to teach you how the airstream works. Then I'm going to go through some proper cleaning procedures. We're also going to talk about dangers of overfilling your hopper and what could happen if you get debris into your blower wheel. And then I'm going to finish up with some minor pickup head adjustments. Yeah, so right now I'm going to get into explaining how our airstream works. So a Tymco regenerative air sweeper is a closed loop system. It begins with this blower wheel right here. The blower wheel is driven off of an auxiliary engine, of which you can change the RPM to. But essentially what's happening is this blower wheel is forcing clean air down this, we call it a pressure tube. It forces clean air down this pressure tube. This down here is the pickup head. It forces clean air down this pressure tube and charges or pressurizes the work chamber in the pickup head. Once you get all this pressure from the blower wheel in there, on the bottom side of the work chamber is our blast orifice. Now our blast orifice is preset, but air comes out of there at an extremely high rate, probably 250 miles an hour, and then air blasts the pavement. Now once that airstream hits the pavement, whatever's in its way is going to get knocked up into the air, into the bottom side of the pickup head. So these blue arrows represent clean air. These brown arrows down here at the bottom represent the dirty air. Now because we use a closed loop system, anything this blower wheel pushes down the pressure tube and into the work chamber, it has to pull this air from somewhere, and the only way it can get air is over here in what we call the suction tube. So anytime this blower wheel is moving, it's simultaneously blowing air down and pulling air up. It does it all at the exact same time. So again, we're pressurizing the work chamber with clean air. We're air blasting the pavement. Now because of our closed loop system, all that air blasted debris that's up in the air is now getting sucked into the hopper. So all of it comes up this suction tube, hits the wide open hopper. All of the large debris, because it hits a wide open area now, all the large debris is just simply going to fall down to the bottom, and then it's going to accumulate over time and accumulate over time. And then what we do is we pull this air up through a screen. Before it goes back into the blower wheel, we pull it up through this hopper screen at the top of your hopper. We pull it into what we call our dust separator. Every Tymco sweeper, from a model 210, a 435, a DST4, a DST6, a 500X, a 600, every single Tymco sweeper has a dust separation system in it, and we're the only company that does that. So we're pulling this air up through the hopper screen, pulling it into our dust separator, where we cyclonically filter out the fine dusts. Now the fine dusts get trapped in the skimmer hood. You guys should all be familiar with the skimmer hood, because that should be, after you dump and use your raker bar 3 or 4 times to get all the debris out, that's the thing that you open up so you can start cleaning out your hopper. So it traps all those fine particles down in the skimmer hood, and then now that air is clean because we've shaved off all the fine particles. So now that clean air goes back into the blower wheel, gets put back down the pressure tube, and then we start the process all over again. Now, something that's very important here. Our water system, we'll use a fraction of the water that most sweepers do because of our dust separator and the way that we filter out the dust. However, all of this debris right here, once it hits the blower wheel, all of the debris that's here is the finest debris, and that's typically the most abrasive. So we do have hopper water in the hopper, and we do recommend that you run hopper water all the time. The reason being is because once all these heavies drop to the bottom and we start pulling those fines, that hopper water, it starts mixing that water in the hopper like this, and it attaches to those fine particles and helps us to clean out the dust. If you don't run hopper water, a lot of times what happens is there's a lot of fine dust that wouldn't normally get past the dust separator because it's been moistened. That will go into the blower wheel. Well, if that goes into the blower wheel, you can prematurely wear out your blower wheel. You can prematurely wear out your blower housing. It's just very abrasive, and it's very abrasive through the whole system here. So what we want to try and do when we're using hopper water, we're basically moistening the entire air system. So that does a couple different things for us. Obviously, it helps us control dust, but it also lubricates this entire airstream right here. It makes it much less abrasive than if you don't use it. So that's in a nutshell how our airstream flows through the sweeper. And again, it's like that on all of our models. They're all essentially the same. Sizes change, dust separator size change and things like that. Hopper sizes change, but it's essentially exactly the same on all of our units. Now, one thing you also want to be mindful of. So you can see right here our hopper screen. When we're filling up our hopper, obviously, if we get towards the top of the hopper screen, what's going to happen if we start overfilling this thing? A couple things will happen. I'll give you a couple examples actually. If you're in leaf season and you start filling up this hopper and you get all the way to the top, I guarantee if you guys have been in a street sweeper for more than a couple days and put more than 20 hours on the thing, you've heard a screen blind over. So it blinds over, it puts a lot of pressure on the blower wheel, and you know that you're full, right? Okay, well, if you do that for too long, this blower wheel is stronger and definitely strong enough to start pulling stuff up above that screen. Well, remember what happens when it goes above this screen. This is our line of defense against large debris. So we start pulling stuff up here, it starts to gather up top here. Now we start pulling it through our dust separator. Now we start pulling stuff into our blower wheel. There's a telltale sign you can tell if you're getting stuff into your blower wheel. And a lot of times this will happen if you're running a dry load. You'll start pulling stuff up through the screen, leaves, dirt, things like that. Or if you're not cleaning it properly and it accumulates up there, a telltale sign is, one, you'll hear it blind over, something like that. But down here, there's a set of turning vanes. I don't think I mentioned that in the beginning. At the bottom of this pressure tube, there's turning vanes. If you're getting debris in here, that means too much stuff is going into your blower wheel. Because you can't have anything in here unless it goes into the blower wheel. So if you're getting like trash and leaves, and if this is getting all mucked up with things, then you're doing something wrong and you need to go back and figure out what it is. Am I overfilling it? Am I not using enough water? Did I not get my dust separator clean? Those kind of things. Because you don't want to be pulling stuff in here. I mean, these blower wheels can last up to, we've seen them last up to 5,000 hours. And the blower housings, they should last a long time if you're running them correctly. So that's one thing to look out for when you're doing your cleaning right there. So you want to make sure you stop well short of your hopper screen. We can fill them up above the inspection doors that are on either side of our Tymco Model 600, but you want to definitely make sure you stop well short of that. Okay, so again, just to kind of go back and recount what I said, we went through the airstream, the necessity to use hopper water whenever you can, what can happen if you don't use hopper water, what can happen if you get things in your blower wheel, and a key inspection point that tells you that I'm getting stuff into my blower wheel and down my pressure tube. Now, there is a real easy way to clean the bottom half of the sweeper. We're going to get into cleaning a little bit of, we're going to get into cleaning the hopper right now. So initially what we typically like to do, you guys are all familiar with our leaf bleeder door on the opposite side of this pressure tube, which is where the turning vanes are located. Well, what we like to do whenever possible is we'll pull up after we dump, and usually you'll cycle your dump cycle with your raker bar 3 to 4 times to get everything out of there. And then when you go to clean with water, you'll put the pickup head on the ground, you'll fire your auxiliary engine all the way up, then you'll stick as high volume of hose as you can find inside the bleeder door. And what that does is it fills up the work chamber with water, it cleans out that whole blast orifice with water, and the crucial point is it cleans out this whole suction tube right here, because it's pulling all that, it won't get all the way up into your hopper, you know. because it hits that wide open area and just falls down because it's heavy, but it'll clean out this whole tube for you. What happens a lot of time, especially if you're in a heavy soil, dirt environment, you'll need to run the water that's in this pressure tube. That's one of the water nozzles that makes you PM10 compliant. But when you do that, everybody knows that sometimes this will get gummed up because it's carrying all that moist water and it wants to build up right here. Well, if you let that continue to happen, then you're restricting all your airflow, you're restricting your suction, the sweeper's not going to perform as well. So it's crucial to make sure that you guys get both of these tubes, especially this tube, clean. And that's a great way to do it, is to stick water in the bleeder door, let the sweeper run, and the airstream will pull it everywhere it needs to go. And it helps a lot, and it'll speed up your clean time too. So that's the first spot right there. Next spot is open both your inspection doors, open the hopper, and get in there and just start hosing. The most crucial point of an air sweeper is the screen area. Because again, every single bit of air that goes through this sweeper has to go through the screen before it goes through the blower wheel. If you don't clean your screen out, then you're going to greatly restrict your airflow. I've seen a lot of, recently I saw somebody who they were sweeping at night, so it was a little bit harder to see, but they hadn't been getting it clean. And we kind of knew that was happening, or we were trying to help them understand the necessity to clean up there. But it was piling up and piling up and piling up, and the sweeper stops performing well. So it's really, really crucial to get all that debris off the screen first and foremost. Your dust separator is very important. When you lift the skimmer hood, you clean out that whole dust separator. That's all your fines go. And then to the best of your ability, make sure you get everything out and you're ready for the next day. Okay, so now we've done that. We've cleaned our screen, we've cleaned our hopper out, we've cleaned the bottom half of our airstream, pressure tube, suction tube, pickup head, blast orifice. So essentially we're ready for the next day. Just leave the doors open, inspection doors open, let it air out a little bit. That'll keep it from getting any kind of corrosion or anything like that. Yeah, one thing that I did want to cover though, that I didn't cover when we were talking about the blower wheel. You can change the blower wheel RPM by changing the auxiliary engine RPM. It's driven off of a PTO shaft that directly drives this blower wheel. There's different settings for different seasons. So like, paper, leaves, light trash cans, bottles, things like that. They're going to be different than your standard street sweeping application of sand and some gravel and some, dirt and things like that versus heavy. On the 600 diesel unit, the lighter debris will typically run at 1500. And again, the lighter debris, when you start to fill it up, if you're running a full RPM like you would do for heavy debris, all you're going to do is start pulling all those leaves up to the screen and blind it over, and you're going to think that you're full when you're really not. So the lower RPMs really help with that. So lower RPM on paper, leaves, trash, things like that. 1500 RPM for that. On the normal standard street sweeping, and I know that each application, each route can be a little bit different, so you guys are going to have to be the experts on what is normal, what is light, what is heavy. So you guys are the experts there. We're just giving you kind of a general approximation here. So for normal accumulation of dirt and sand and gravel, 1600 RPM. If you get into some real heavy stuff, then we crank it up to 1800 RPM, which is our max. If you're running a 600 C&G, it's a little bit different. We run the light debris with paper, leaves, trash at 1600, the normal debris at 1700, and the heavy debris, we max that out at 2000. Yeah, and then the 435 and the 210s, they also have different settings too. Yeah, so I just wanted to cover that because you guys will be changing that as you operate. Yeah. Okay, so again, we've covered the airstream, covered the necessity for hopper water, how the dust separator works, engine RPM. One other thing I did want to cover, and we've talked about cleaning, one thing I did want to cover, a mistake that we see a lot of times, and sometimes we see this from operators because they're just out on the route trying to get the job done, is the pickup head adjustment. So the pickup head is adjusted not by these side skids right here, but by 4 springs on all 4 corners of the pickup head. And basically what we do is each side of the pickup head has a preset skid. So we set it, there's a measurement that you take. This is all in your operator manual too. There's a measurement that you take. You set the skids on both sides. Then you adjust the weight by these 4 chains. And so basically we're taking, it could be a 6 or 7 or 800 pound head, depending on if you have a broom in there or not. And we're pulling the weight off of it so it kind of floats. And the way that we do that, we kind of check it by weight. So what we're after is we're after like between 50, maybe 60 pounds it should feel on all 4 corners. That's it. The most common mistake that we see when people are trying to adjust their pickup head because they're trying to compensate for, say it's dusting, or, maybe they don't understand the airstream, so they're just trying to figure out, I need more pressure, I need more pressure. Or maybe they operate a broom sweeper and they need more pressure on the broom, more pressure on the broom. Well, we'll see that they'll take these springs and just run them all the way down to the ground. This thing is, for the full weight of it. And really the only thing that does, because it doesn't change the way that sweeper is sweeping, and it doesn't bring the blast orifice any closer to the ground because it's already preset, all it does is eat up these side skids, which costs a significant amount of money. So you want to not do it that way. You want to do it with the pickup head springs on all 4 corners. Okay? So those are just some basic operator skills. Everybody probably uses those on a regular basis. They're just things that it's good to just kind of recap a little bit. All of the sweepers that you run in your fleet, you should have an operator manual in the truck. All of the engine RPM settings, all the cleaning procedures, daily inspections, pre-inspections, safety procedures, all that stuff is in the operator manual. So you always want to have a copy of that to refer to. You can call us anytime. Our number is 1-800-423-6220. All of us are more than willing to help you. We appreciate your business, and we thank you for your time.